Hey, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to build this real-time chat application in React and .NET 5.0. We're going to use the SignalR library, which uses WebSockets to communicate between the clients and the server. Looking at the application, the landing page will serve as a lobby, and here we can put the name we want to use and the room we would like to join. Once we join, we can see the connected users on the left, as well as a message from the My Chat bot saying Mark has joined coding. And as you can see, Johnny was already connected, and this is because I have another browser open that represents this connection. Now, if Mark goes ahead and types a message, everyone connected to this room will receive it. Now, Johnny can reply with a message, and if he goes ahead and clicks the Leave Room button, then his connection will be closed. And we can see a message on Mark's screen that Johnny left the chat and connected users got updated. This video will be focused more on the use of SignalR in real-time chat communication. I expect you to have installed Visual Studio 2019 as well as NPM and Node.js. I'm really excited to build this application with you. As a reminder, the link to the repos will be in the description below. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. When using HTTP, we make a request from the client to the server and the server sends a response back. This is a one-way communication. To initiate a WebSocket connection, we first send a request to upgrade connection to WebSocket. We call this a handshake, and this is achieved with the HTTP protocol. Once we have upgraded the connection to WebSocket, we get a bidirectional communication, where the client can send messages to the server, as well as the server can push messages to the client. And this connection will stay alive until it is closed. Now, SignalR, which is the library we will be using, first attempts to establish a WebSocket connection if possible. And the SignalR Hubs API makes it very easy to make calls from a server to connect clients and from clients to the server. With this in mind, let's start by building our service. So I have open Visual Studio 2019 and we're going to click on ASP.NET Core Empty. Click Next. Let's call it Chat Service. Pick location. Click Next. We're going to select that .NET 5.0. Click Create. Now that we have our project, let's create a new directory called Hubs. So let's right click on Chat Service, do Add, and do a new folder, and let's name it Hubs. Let's now create a new class inside Hubs, and let's name it Chat Hub. This class is going to extend from Hub. And let's make sure we're using Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.SignalR. So we're going to start by implementing the join room method. This method will be called whenever a user submits their name and the room they want to join. So let's start typing public async task join room. And then this is going to get an object which we are about to create. Let's name it user connection. Let's go ahead and right click on chat service and create a new class. And let's name it user connection. Now this class is going to have a couple properties. So let's say string, let's name it user. And the second property is going to be the room. So one has a name, the other one has the room. Okay, let's save this file. Let's go back to our chat hub. So at this point, we will have the username, we'll have the room, and then the connection ID, we'll get it by default from the context object of the hub class. So let me show you how simple it is to send messages to the clients. So we can simply do await clients.all.send async. And if you can see here, this takes a string method and then it will take a cancellation token. And then also it can take whatever parameters we want to pass. Now this string method will be the name of the method or function that we have in our front end. So we can say something along the lines, receive message, and then we can pass in some value we want. Say, hey everyone. Now this would route hey everyone to all clients, and the method to receive it will be the receive message method in the front end. Don't worry if you don't get it yet, it will make more sense as we go. Go ahead and create a new variable. Let's call it private read-only string. Let's call it bot user. This will be the name of the bot. And if we do public chat hub, and inside here, we can say that our bot user will be equal to my chat bot. Now let's update this call, and let's put here bot user, and also let's send a message along. So we can say user connection dot user has joined, and we can say the room user connection dot room. So cool, we're passing along the bot name and also a message saying the user has joined, this particular room. Now the problem is we're passing this to every client, and we only want to pass it to the people connected in that room. And this is where groups come in handy, because we can group connections together. And to do that, whenever someone joins a room, what we can do is await and say groups that add to group async, and say context that connection ID and user connection dot room. Now this would add the specified connection, this incoming connection, to a group. In our case, a group is just the room we're passing in. And now we can update clients.all. Instead of doing clients.all, we're going to do group, and we're going to say we want the user connection dot room group. That's the one we want. And then we want to send that message to that group. So now we'll have to map the incoming request to our hub. And for that, we're going to go to startup. Let's scroll down and let's get rid of this. We can say endpoint that map hub. And in here, we're going to do chat hub. Let's make sure we're using that, using chat service that hubs. And let's map it to chat. Let's go up to configure services, and let's do services dot add SignalR. And we'll come back to the startup file to add a course policy. And until then, so that you see what error you get, I'm not going to add it, but keep in mind, we'll come back to this. Let's give it a shot now and try to run our application. And it seems to be up. This is a good time to switch gears now and start working on our front end. So now we're going to create our React project, and we're going to do so by using the create React app. So let's make sure we install that first. So we can do npm install -g create React app. And now we can do npx create React app, and let's name it my chat.frontend. Once that finishes, let's open up that directory and let's do code and that, and this will open Visual Studio Code for us. So we have Visual Studio Code open in that directory. Feel free to use any text editor you like. So the first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and install Bootstrap and also SignalR. So let's go over here to terminal, new terminal. And over here we can do npm install at Microsoft /SignalR. Be patient, that will take a minute or two, but after that, let's do npm install React Bootstrap. Okay, now that it's done, let's open source and let's open app.js and let's import the CSS. So we can do import bootstrap /this/css/bootstrap.min.css. Now, if we go to app CSS, we're going to actually delete all this stuff And I don't want to bore you guys with a bunch of CSS. So there's going to be a link in the description to the repo. Specifically, there's going to be another link to CSS file. And I want you to copy that and paste it in here. So the link in the description is going to take you to this CSS file, the app CSS. And then all we got to do is click this little button right here. It says copy file content and head back to Visual Studio Code. Let's now paste it in here and save this file. And we'll be using all these classes. And now we're ready to start building our first component, which would be the lobby. This is where the user puts their name and the room they want to join, and they click join. So let's go ahead and create a folder. So let's right click on source and add a folder. Let's name it components. And inside components, let's create a lobby.js file. So we say lobby.js. Let's now do const lobby equal to, and this is going to take something, but let's leave it blank for now. And in here, we're going to have a little form. So we can say return form, and it's going to be class name equal lobby, just to give it some style. Okay. And inside here, we want to have a form that group. And inside there, we're going to have a form that control. And this will have a placeholder of name and on change. We're going to do something with it. And let's do another one. It's going to have form that control. It's going to have a placeholder equal to room. And on change, we're going to do something. And then out here, we're going to have a button. And it's going to have a variant of success. And it's going to be a type submit and disabled. It's going to be disabled if there is either a name or a room. So we're going to fill up in a second, and then let's name it join. And then out here, let's make sure we are doing export default lobby. All right, so now let's fill up the stuff we're missing. So let's use the use state to keep the state of the user and the room. So we can do const user set user equal to use state. And for those of you not familiar with the use state, not user, but use state, this is a function. This is set user. So we call this as a function. We pass in a value, and that value gets set in this variable. And you'll see in just a second where we're going to use it. So let's also do a const room and set room equal to use state. Okay. So now on this change, every time the user types the name, we want to get that value. So we're going to pass e, and we're going to say set user to e that target that value. So essentially, we're going to be setting the value that the user is typing to set user, using this as a function, and this is going to have the value. Same thing here. We're going to do e set room. We're going to do e that target that value. Now let's disable the join button if there's not a user or there's not a room. Basically means if either of these is missing, the join button is going to be disabled. So once the user puts their name and the room they want to join, they're going to click on join, and that's going to submit the form. So what happens when they submit the form? Well, we just want to call a join room function, and we're going to pass in that user and our room. And that join room function, we're going to get it as a parameter. So let's do join room. And now we're getting the join room function. And then inside here, it's time to do the unsubmit. So we can do unsubmit. And this is going to be equal, and we're going to get an event. And let's do e.prevent default. And this is basically going to prevent the page from refreshing. And then we're going to call the join room function, and we're going to pass in user and room. I know we haven't specified this function yet. We haven't created it anywhere, but we will. Now, last thing we're missing here is to do the imports we're missing. So let's do import form and then also button. Have it be. And also let's import the use state from React. And let's save this file. And if you haven't noticed yet, we haven't set up the project to use Redux, and we won't. In this application, we're just going to be passing props. If you want to see some of that, feel free to check out some of my other videos. So let's head back to app.js now, and let's delete all this stuff. And we're actually going to try to keep this simple as possible. So we're going to keep all of our SignalR functions and things right here in our app.js. Let me also delete the logo. Okay, and now we can do const app. There you go. So let's try doing a return. Let's do a div. And this will have a class name of app. And in here we'll have an h2, and let's call it my chat. And let's do an HR and class name. And if you skip this part of the video, some part of the video, make sure you copy the app CSS that is in the description and just paste it in our app.css file. And this will let you use the class names like line and app and so forth. All right, let's now return the lobby, and let's actually pass in join room. With that said, let's create our join room function, and we're going to do it right here in app. So let's do const join room, and this will be an async function, and we're going to pass in user and room. Okay, let's wrap everything in a try and catch. So we can do try. Let's do catch. And we can pass the error and just do console.log e. So this function takes in a user and the room. And this function is going to create a connection with our service, and it's going to register all the listeners. It's going to start the connection, and then if it needs to invoke any methods, it will. Well, let's start a step at a time. Let's create a connection. Let's first import the things we're going to be using and use so far. So let's import lobby, since we have that defined down there in the return. So let's do from components and lobby. And also let's import hub connection builder and log level from Microsoft SignalR. So let's go now and say const connection equal to a new hub connection builder with URL. So remember, for me, my service is running in port 44345. So I'm going to copy this. And then we're going to do / chat, which is the mapping URL we set in our setup file. We can then set up some logging. This will log to the console. So we can do configure logging. And then we can pass log level of information. That way we can see what's going on. And this will log information, warnings, and errors. And then at the end, let's do a dat build. All right, we have ourselves a connection. Now let's set up a method or a function that will receive a message from the server. So in our server, we mentioned about this receive message function, right? So let's add that. The way to do that is we do connection and then we do that on, and then we name it the same thing. So let's say receive message. This way the server can push messages to the client or the client. And then here we're going to pass a user and a message. Okay, for now to see if it works, let's just try to console log message. These are actually called handlers, and once you specify all of them, then you're good to start the connection. So we can do await connection that start. And after this, we can invoke any method we want. And the point of this join room is to invoke the join room method, right? So we're gonna send a message to the server. So let's do await connection that invoke. And then we called it join room back in our server. So we have to have the same name. And then let's pass in user and room. So to recap and try to explain this a different way, I want to make sure you get this right. So whenever we join room, we pass in the user and the room. We create a connection. We set up the handlers. We start the connection. And then we invoke the join room method. So whenever we invoke this, we're going to pass the user and the room to this method. It's going to be linked, and this is going to be the magic of SignalR. This method is going to do the groups things that we just did earlier, and then it's going to send a message to receive message. And that received message is going to be this guy. Now, if everything is successful, let's make sure we are storing that connection. So we can do const connection and then set connection. And then we're going to be using the use state just like we did previously. And then down here, we can say set connection and we pass in connection. Let's make sure we are importing use state from React. Let's now save this file. Let's open public, go to index.html, and down here on the body, let's add a background color just to make it look a little nicer. So we can do style and we can do background color, and let's do hashtag 66D9FF. Okay, and save this file. So let's try to run it now and see if it's at least building. So we can do npm start. Hey, so this is great news. Our app is up and running. So this is really good. If we notice and the console, we can see that we have a warning there saying connection is assigned value, but never used. Don't worry about that. We're going to be using the connection. So ignore this for the moment. Let's try to have some names. So we can do John, and then we want to join the coding room. And then let's try to hit join, see what happens. So we actually got an error. We have it being blocked by course policy. This is actually the browser blocking us since we're making a cross-domain request. So you can see the ports are different on the servers than on our front-end application. And this is the error I mentioned before that we will get, and I want you to get exposure to it if you haven't seen it before. So let's go to our service and the startup file, and let's add a policy there to fix this. So we're here on the startup file. So let's do under configure services, let's add services that add course, and let's pass in options. And in here we can do options that default policy, and we're going to pass a builder. And in here we can do builder that with origins, and let's do HTTP localhost 3000. This is where the front end application is currently running at. Let's do allow any header, allow any method, and allow any credentials. Okay, and if we scroll a little bit down now, under use routing, and here the order actually matters because this is a pipeline. Let's do app.use course. All right, let's save this and let's run our service again. Now that our service is running, let's refresh this page. And let's do again John. And let's do coding as a room and hit join. And look at that. We have a connection, WebSocket connection, and then we actually received the message John has joined coding. This is pretty cool and really good progress. Notice that this message was from our console log, but these were from the logger we set up when we set up the connection. Okay, so now back to our code. What we're doing here is whenever we receive the message, we're just doing a console log, but let's actually store that somewhere. And for that, let's just create a const. Let's do messages, and let's do set messages, and do it use state. And whatever we put inside here is to be initialized. So we can initialize it with an empty array. So that means that messages at the beginning is going to be just an empty array. And then as messages come in, what we can do is do set messages. And let's pass in messages, whatever messages we have. So we can do it like this. And then we can keep the message we already have by using the spread operator. And then add the new message coming in, which will be user, comma, message. Let me autocorrect that, and there you go. All right, so now that we have the messages, what we can do is create some components to display the messages. Let's go ahead and create a new file under components, and let's call it chat.js. So let's do const chat, and we're going to be passing in the messages. Let's do a div here. Let me auto format this. Do an Alt-Shift-F if you're in Windows. And then let's do div. We can type. Let's do class name equal to chat. And in here, let's create another component that will render this. So let's right click on components again and do new file. And let's name this one message container.js. And this component is really the one to actually display the messages. So we can do const message container. We're going to pass in messages. And then we can do return div. And let's do a class name of message container. And inside here, let's map through messages. So we're going to go through every message. So it's going to be M. And let's also pass in index. And now we can do here we can do a div. And let's have a key, which uniquely identifies this component. Index. And then class name. Let's make it user message. And let's have another div. This will have a class name of message pg primary. And then let's do m.message. So this is actually our message. And now let's display the user. So we can do div class name from user. And let's do m.user. Forgot to add parentheses here, so let me add it here and also in front of this. There you go. Get rid of the space for now. And then we can do export default message container. All right, let me save this file and let's go back to chat. So now that we have our message container to display our messages, all we really got to do is use that. So we can do message container and we automatically got that import. And then we can do messages equal messages. Okay, close it there. And then out here, down here, we can do export default and chat. Save this file and let's go up another level to app. And if we scroll down here to the return, we can have a check here and see if we have a connection. If we don't have a connection, let's display the lobby so that the user can put their name and the room they want to join. But once we have a connection, let's actually display the messages or the chat component. So we can do, if not connection, then we want to display lobby. If not, let's just display the chat. So we can do chat. Let's do messages equal to messages. And let's close this and let's close the curly braces. All right, let's save this file. And it says chat is not defined right here on the error. So let's make sure we are importing this. So we can actually copy this thing. And I'm gonna do chat and chat. There you go. Save this and let's go to our browser. Okay, so we're back at the browser. So now let's put the name and a room we want to join. And we should receive some message from our server saying that we connected to that room. So let's say we do Mark and we do coding and we enter. And there you go. It says Mark has joined coding. And this is a message from our My Chat bot. Pretty cool. And now that we can receive messages, let's make sure that we can also send them. Okay, back at the code. So in order to send a message, we're gonna do something really similar to what we did here in this invoke join room, right? So let's create a new function to send a message. So down here, we can leave some space and we can do const send message async, and we're gonna pass message. And inside here, let's do a try and catch. Let's log this error. And in here we can do await, and we can do connection that invoke. And now we can name the method that we want. Remember, we haven't created this on our server yet, but we can pick the name now. We can say we're gonna call it send message, and we're gonna pass in message. Okay, so someone is gonna be calling send message. They're gonna pass a message, and then our connection is gonna invoke the send message method. This is gonna live on our server side, and we're gonna pass in message to it. Cool. Okay, so let's come down here and let's pass in send message to our chat. Let's save this file and let's go to chat now. And we're going to be passing it to here. So let's do send message And now let's create a component so that we can pass this function to. That component will be a form to get the user message that they're typing and the submit button to send the message. So let's right click on components and add a new file. Let's name it send message form.js. All right, so let's go ahead and do const send message form. And this is of course going to get the send message function. And we're going to return the form. And inside here, let's do an input group. And in here, we're going to have a form control. And we can have a placeholder, message, and we're going to have an on change that we will fill up in a second. Okay. And now another thing we should have is the button, right? So let's do an input group that append. And then inside here, we can have a button variant equal primary type equal to submit. And we will disable it depending if we don't have a message. So we'll add that in a second, but let's have send as the name. And let's make sure we are doing export default send message form. So let's store the message that the user is typing. And for that, we're going to do use state. Let's do const message and set message equal to use state. Oops. Okay. And now on change, we're going to pass in E as an event and then do set message e.target.value. So we're going to set that as that. And then we're also going to set the value of this input box to be message. All right. Now let's do disabled if there's not any message. Go ahead now and do the submit. So we can do on submit, and we're going to pass in, well, it's going to be an object first of all, but we're going to pass in E. Okay, let me auto format this. There you go. And then we can do e.prevent default so the page doesn't reload on submit. And then we can call our send message function that we've been passing in, and we pass in the message the user has typed. And lastly, let's set message to empty. And since we set the value of this input box to be message, then that's going to clear out. So let's save this and let's go back to chat. So now at the chat, all we got to do is render that component. So we can do send message form, and we can do send message. There you go. And equal to send message. Okay, and that got imported. So let's save this file. And okay, we're getting errors. We are missing. Okay, we forgot to import those. So let's make sure we add that. So let's go back to send message form and let's import these. And if you didn't miss it, good for you. You are definitely ahead of me. Let me do this real quick. So form control and let's also import useState from React. All right, let's save it now and see what happens. There you go, successfully. All right, so let's go to the browser and check this out. Okay, so the input box is showing up nicely and the button, and it's disabled at first. So let's do hello. And we have send messages and a function. All right, let's see what happened there. And I'm gonna leave this as part of the video just to help some of you that may run into issues like these. So it says send messages and a function. So I'm just gonna check for typos first of all. So send message, looks like it's highlighted, so it should be fine. Let's go to chat. Send message, and it's highlighted. This one's highlighted, this one's not. Send, okay, I'm missing an S here, so that's the issue. All right, I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna go back to the browser. Okay, so back at the browser, I'm gonna try sending hello again. So let's click on send. And notice the error message we get here. It says, failed to invoke send message due to an error on the server. And it says method does not exist. And this is very accurate because we actually haven't created this in the server. And this is why logging is so cool and so important. All right, so next step, let's go back to our service and let's add that method. Okay, so we are back at our service and we want to have a method so the client can call to send a message, right? And this message that the client is sending is going to be routed to every other client that is in that same room. Now, there's a couple of things we don't know. We don't know who the user is and to what room they have joined. And this is because we are not keeping any records of it. So we do get the connection ID. That's a good thing. But we don't know who the user is for that connection ID or the room. For the purpose of our application, we're going to be using a dictionary where the key is going to be the connection ID, and then we're going to have the user and the room as the value. And this is going to be only one instance through the life of the application. So that means this dictionary is going to be a singleton. So we want to go to startup and let's register a singleton here. So we can do services that add singleton. There you go. And then we can do add dictionary. And then we can do a string, comma, and then this is going to be the object that we're going to be using for this. In this case, it's going to be a user connection. And we're going to pass in options. And let's just instantiate this. So we're going to do new dictionary, string, user connection. And we're missing a parentheses. All right, save this file. All right, let's go back to Chat Hub now. And let's make sure we inject this using dependency injection. We can do private, read only, dictionary, string, user connection, connections. And then up here, we'll do dictionary, string, user connection, connections. So this is going to give us that instance that we created, and we just got to assign it here. Connections equal to connections. Cool. So now all we got to keep track is whenever the user joins, we'll do connections, and then we'll have the context that connection ID as a key is going to be equal to that user connection. This way, we now are keeping track of it. And now we're ready to implement our send message method. So we can do public async task send message, and that's going to get a string message. And inside here, let's do a quick if and do connections that try get value. So that's going to get a value if there is one. So we can do context that connection ID, and then this is a way to get a variable out of it. User connection, and inside here, So this returns true or false. If there is a value with that connection ID as the key, it's going to get the value out of this variable. So we can use this inside here. So all we got to do here is await clients that group by user connection that room. And then we can do that send async, and then we'll send it to receive message, which is the method the function we specify in the client. It's going to receive the messages, comma, and then we'll say user connection that user, and we'll send the message. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So to go over it, connection is dictionary, and we try to get that value based on this connection ID, which is the key. So we get that user connection, which is just the user, the name that they put in the room. And then with that, we try to send a message to the client's group. And so since we have that stored, we know who the room is, what the room is. So we can use user connection that room. And then when we do send async, we're going to send it to receive message, and we're going to use the user. That way the name displays in the message, and we actually going to pass in the message. Cool. Let's run the service now, and let's head back to the browser. So back at the browser, I did a reload, and I'm going to try to do Mark and do coding and try to join that room. It looks good. Mark has joined coding. Let's try to send a message now. Let's do hello. And awesome, we can see hello, and we can see the name Mark in there. I now open another browser, since this should be sending messages to everyone in that room. And I'm gonna try to join with another person. So let's say we do John, and we do coding. And look at this, it says John has joined coding from my chatbot. Pretty cool. And then we can say hello from John. So we send that, we get hello from John in our chat, and then we get hello from John in Mark's view. Pretty cool. Just for the sake of it, let's try to join Omar to a different chat. So let's do C#. And it joined, Omar has joined C#, but it didn't say anything on Mark's view. And if we write hello everyone, we only get it on this chat because they're on a different room. So that works as expected. Pretty cool. Let's head back to the code now and implement the option to leave the room. That way the user can join a different one. We're back at the front end, and let's add a function to basically stop our connection. So we can do const close connection async. And let's do a try and catch. And then let's do console.log.e. Awesome. And inside here, all we got to do is await connection.stop. And this will stop our connection. Now we should add a handler whenever the connection stops. This way we can clear whatever or do whatever we need to do. In our case, we can do connection that on close. There you go. And then passing E. And we can do set connection. We can clean that out, and also set messages. Let's also clean that out. Now let's go down and let's pass in close connection. Actually, let me do a new line here. Let's pass in close connection to our chat. And let's head over to our chat. And in here, we're going to get the close connection function. So close connection. And I don't think this is as big to make a component. Just keep it simple. So we can do class name equal to leave room. And then let's just do a button here. Button variant equal to danger. It shows up red. Then on click, let's do close connection. We're gonna call that, and let's name it leave room. There you go. One more thing, let's make sure we are importing button from React Bootstrap. Cool. So there's going to be a button showing up now in red. It's going to say leave room. Whenever you click on that, you're actually going to execute the close connection function, which is the close connection function right here. That's going to stop the connection, and our handler is going to get triggered too, and it's going to clear the connection that we currently have and the messages. Okay, so if now we try to join, let's do mark and coding. And it says mark join coding, and we see this red button, leave room. So let's click on it. And there you go, we got connection disconnected. Now let's go back to our service, and when that onClose event happens, we want to send a message to every user in that room saying that this particular person left the chat. Okay, so we're back at the backend, and I stopped the service from running. So let's add a public, and we actually want to override this method. So it's going to be a task on this connected async. There you go. That auto completed for us, which is good news. And we can do if connections that try get value context that connection ID, similar to what we did earlier. So we're going to get a user connection. So basically, if that connection exists in our dictionary, we want to remove it since that person is now gone. So we can do context that connection ID. There you go. And by the way, this is a way to safely remove it without getting an exception. If you try to remove it and it doesn't exist, it can crash your program. Now that we have removed it, let's send a message. We can do client that group user connection that room, and then we can do send async to receive message, and then we can do bot user, and here we can do something like user connection that user has left, and that's good enough. All right, let's save this and let's run the service again. And keep in mind, the onDisconnected, just like we did on the front end, is something that we are overriding from the SignalR library. So these are executed every time there's a disconnection, right? So this is not something that we have to explicitly call. So this is something that is automatically called. So I'm back at the browser, and I actually have two browsers open, and I joined Mark to coding, and I'm gonna join Joan to coding as well. And they're both in the same chat now. So if I say hello, they're in the same chat, right? So now if I click leave room, okay, now I should say John has left. Okay, in the chat, and the message was sent from my chatbot. So pretty cool. I'm very happy that you have made it this far in the video. We have one more thing to do, and is create a component to list the connected users on the left of the chat. But before we do that, let's take a look at this. Say we do hi, and there's multiple people typing, and do hi again, hi, and then it doesn't automatically go to the latest message. So let's fix that, and then we'll do the connected users. So to fix this, we're gonna go back to the message container, and we're gonna use two hooks to fix this. So we're gonna do import use effect and use ref from React. Now let's do const message ref use ref. Think about it as this is going to be keeping a reference of something, right? Now we're going to do ref equal to message ref. And now with the use effect, so we can do use effect, and the use effect takes a function first, and the second argument is a list of dependencies. So every time something here changes, the code is going to be run. So every time messages change, we're going to execute this function. So in this case, we only have this is an array, right? So in this case, we only have one dependency, which is messages. Every time that changes, this runs. So that's pretty much it. So if message ref, so let's make sure that this is not going to blow up on us. So let's do message ref that current. And in here, we can get the scroll height and client height. And this is how you get the value out of it. We just do message ref that current. So now that we have the scroll height and client height, we can do message ref that current that scroll to, and do left 0 top will be scroll height minus client height, and then the behavior will be smooth. And there you go, semicolon. And I actually have a typo here. Message. There you go. All right, I'm gonna save this file. So let's quickly recap. So we created this use ref, and we have a reference to this div. And what we do is every time messages change, we're gonna run this function. Let's make sure this is not null or anything like that, so it doesn't explode on us. And out of the message ref that current, we take out the scroll height and client height. And with that, we can scroll to, and we calculate the top by subtracting scroll height minus client height. And the behavior is going to be smooth. Now let's go back to our browser and check this out. So we're back at the browser, and now if we start typing hi, notice how it automatically scrolls to the bottom. And this is exactly what we wanted. So we're back at the code, and now we're focusing on showing the list of connected users in that particular chat. And let's start off by creating a handler. So we can do connection.on, and this one doesn't exist yet. So let's create, say, users in room. And we're gonna get the, just the users. All right. So our server is going to push the users, and we're going to get it here. So let's store it somewhere, and we can just use let's do const and say users, set users equal to use state. And this would be an empty array at the beginning. And then in here, we can just do set users and pass in users. And I have a couple of typos. So it's room, there you go, and const. There you go. And let's not forget to update. I missed it. Oh, here. Let's not forget to unclose. Let's clear up set users to be back to an empty array. Okay. We can now pass users to our chat component. So we can do users. There you go. I want to save this and I'm going to go to chat. And inside here, we can just get the users and let's create a component to handle the showing the connection of the users. So let's right click on components and new file. And let's call it connected users.js. This component is going to be really tiny. We can do const connected users. And then of course we're passing in users. And right here we can return immediately a div. And let's have a class name equal to user list. And we can do h4 and we can have connected users. So that's the title. And then in here, let's do users map. So we're going to go through every user. Let's pass in an index as well. And actually I'm missing open parentheses here. Okay, there you go. And let me close it as well. And then in here we can do age 6, say. The keys is going to be the index. And let's close it here. And then let's just show you the U, which is the user. And at the end, let's do export default connected users and save this file. And let's go back to chat. And on top of this div, let's do connected users. And we're going to pass users. And let's close this. Save this file. And connected users not defined. So let's make sure we are adding this. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it in here. Say connected users, save that, and now it's successful. Cool. So let's go to our service now and let's make sure we are pushing those users that are connected and disconnected to right here to this handler. This way users will get updated and we can display them. So we need to make sure we are doing that properly. So let's go to the service and add that. Okay, so we are back at the service and we want to make sure the service pushes to the clients all the users in that particular room. So we need to make sure we do this every time a new user joins the room and whenever a user is disconnected. So we know we'll have to add something to the join room and also to the onDisconnect async. So I think we should probably start with just sending the information itself. So let's do a public, and let me stop this from running. So we can do public task send connected users, and then this is going to take a string and a room. And then in here we can do var users, and we can do a little link to get this out of the dictionary. So we can do connections that values. So this is going to get all the values, and then we can do a where. Oops, and then we can do C from connection, and then C where C that room equals to the room coming in to this method, so room. And then we want to select just to see that user. So this is going to just return the users that match with the room passing into the method. Okay, so once we have the list of users, let's just return to the clients that group. There you go, group, pass in the room. And then we can do send async to users in room, I believe we called, and we can pass in the users. And make sure you're using system.link for that query to work. Cool. All right. So now on this connected, we want to do, what was it? Connected, send connected users. And we want to pass user connection dot room to it. So we pass it here. That way it knows to update the list. And also on join room, we want to do it as well. So we want to do await, send connected users, and then do user connection dot room. All right, let's save this and let's run our service and go to our browser. Okay, so now back at the browser, let's do Mia and let's do coding. Cool, look at that. So connect the users, we have Mia in the chat. Pretty nice. Now on this side, let's do John. Let's do coding. And John has joined coding, and then we see Mia and John. So let's say we leave the room and John left the room. Let's say John joins now, let's say JavaScript. Okay, and they're independent. Pretty cool. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. There are many, many features you can still add to this chat. So feel free to play with it and improve it any way you like. If you do anything cool, feel free to ping me, add it to the messages, LinkedIn, or somewhere. I would love to see what you came up with. Like I always say, if you want to continue to improve and get better, make sure you practice, practice, practice. I believe in you, and I'll see you on the next one.